Good morning, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. The main fire potential impacts for the next couple of days include some wind with low relative humidities across mainly southern and southeast Utah. By Thursday, we do see some winds and low relative humidity back into southern Nevada. And then for today, some lingering showers and thunderstorms continue over far eastern Idaho, western Wyoming, and portions of northeast Utah. But we do see a general drying pattern through midweek. The past 24 hours precipitation and lightning is shown here. We did have a pretty strong cold front move through the Great Basin over the past 24 hours, bringing this band of moisture with it up across northern Utah, parts of northeast Nevada, and up into eastern Idaho and western Wyoming. Not a lot of lightning accompanied these storms, however. Great Basin fire activity is shown here. Not too much to speak of, really. We had this new fire down in far southwest Utah that was about 100 acres. Winds were very strong in the area yesterday, but relative humidities were still elevated yesterday. They will be coming down over the next few days. Precipitation for the past 7 days is shown here with the inches on the left and the percent of normal on the right. It's been a pretty wet week for much of the Great Basin. We've got some really high percent of average values over southern Nevada, southern Utah, and really across much of the area. This week in June is normally a pretty dry week, so these values aren't super impressive, but definitely above average precipitation totals for the time of year, which has delayed some of our curing a bit down south. Here in western Nevada, those areas got a lot of precip last week, but have dried out just a bit in the last 7 days. ERCs for a couple of our PSAs are shown here. Here on the top we have western Nevada, and on the bottom the Arizona Strip. These values are both below normal for the time of year, but on a bit of an upward trend. We will see a drier air mass moving into the southern half of the Great Basin, which will allow these ERC values to continue to rise. Taking a look at our satellite imagery this morning, we can still see that broad area of low pressure in place across the western U.S. today. And here's that cold front that moved through yesterday with very strong winds across the southern Great Basin. We'll still see some lingering winds over portions of Utah over the next few days. Cooler temperatures in place today with warming through the week. Again, we see that trough of low pressure over the Pacific Northwest, really dominating the weather pattern for the entire western U.S. Some higher relative humidities up north, but really a drier air mass moving into the southern Great Basin today. Fire potential remains generally low with the recent precipitation, cool temperatures, and a lot of the green vegetation that we still have out there, except across portions of the southern Great Basin. Relative humidities for this afternoon are going to be quite low in the single digits over southern Nevada and portions of the lower elevations of southern Utah. Here on the right, we're looking at afternoon wind gusts, still fairly breezy this afternoon over portions of, over much of southern Utah. On Wednesday, the low remains in place over northern California, bringing generally dry, breezy conditions to much of the Great Basin. We will see some drying up north. Still, our fire potential remains generally low. Temperatures on Wednesday still cool, not quite as cool as today, but highs in the 70s for much of the Great Basin, a little bit warmer down south. Those wind gusts will remain in place over southwest Utah and into eastern Utah on Wednesday, but generally lighter elsewhere. On Thursday, the low dives a little bit further south, keeping generally dry, breezy conditions across the south. We will see a little bit of moisture returning back to northwest Nevada and possibly portions of Idaho as well on Thursday. Relative humidity still remain quite low over southern Nevada and the low elevations of Utah. And we'll see winds pick up again over southern Nevada out ahead of that low as it gains a little more strength. 3-day precipitation totals shown here. Really, the bullseye of precip remains over western Wyoming with some precip over Idaho and far northern Utah. On Friday, that low continues to open up and track north across the Great Basin for precip in those areas, still dry across the south. And we see another low pressure system developing off the Pacific coast. On Saturday, that low will strengthen and continue to move closer to the California coast there, keeping dry, breezy conditions over southern Nevada and southern Utah. And on Sunday, that low continues to move closer. Temperatures will increase by Sunday as we do see a ridge sort of developing over the central U.S. here. On Monday, the low moves closer. Winds will likely begin to increase as that low moves closer to the Great Basin, especially across Utah and Nevada. We'll see temperatures remaining warm, possibly up around 90 degrees or so by the first of next week, ahead of that low. The 7-day precipitation totals show a little bit more precip coming to the north in the extended forecast. The extended outlook taking us into the first couple of days of July, so this is June 27th through July 3rd, calls for above normal temperatures and below normal precipitation across the southern tier of the United States. That's going to keep us generally warm, dry across the south with above normal chances for precip across the north. So what we're seeing is a delay in the monsoon, which is why we're seeing this below normal precip trend across the southwest. But we are still expecting to see these low pressure systems tracking across the Pacific Northwest, which will keep our chances for above normal precip over Idaho and northern Nevada. That concludes today's fire potential briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest updates.